All right. Hello, guys. This is my first day of reading a chapter book for you guys. I'm new to doing this online. Because you're not here, I'm going to do my very best with the audience I have. Um, so we'll get to it. The story of the book is called The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. Now, before I continue on, this is a scholastic book. And scholastic books want me to say I am allowed to read a scholastic book before each video. So here it is. I'm allowed to read a scholastic book. Now I'm allowed to read it. So again, the book is called The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. So I want you to take this moment right now to pause the video to do our normal, what are your predictions of the story, what it's going to be about, all that good stuff. Turn to somebody next to you, your sister or brother at home, your mom or dad. If it's yourself, turn to yourself and talk to yourself. What is the prediction? What is this story going to be about? So go ahead and pause it. Hopefully pause. And we'll continue on. All right, so thank you guys. Each day I'm going to read one chapter. I'm going to ask you questions when we're done with each chapter. All right, so let's enjoy. Here we go. Once, in a house on Egypt Street, there lived a rabbit who was made almost entirely of china. He had china arms, he had china legs, he had china paws, he had a china head, a china torso, and a china nose. His arms and his legs were jointed and joined by wire so that his china elbows and china knees could be bent, giving him much freedom of movement. His ears were made of real rabbit fur, and beneath the fur there were strong, bendable wires, which allowed the ears to be arranged into poses that reflected the rabbit's mood. Jaunty, tired, and full of ennui. His tail, too, was made of real rabbit fur and was fluffy and soft and well-shaped. The rabbit's name was Edward Tulane. And he was tall. He measured almost 3 feet, from the tip of his ears to the tip of his feet. His eyes were painted and penetrated an intelligent blue. In all, Edward Tulane felt himself to be an exceptional specimen. Only his whiskers gave him pause. They were long and elegant, as they should be, but they were an uncertain origin. Edward felt quite strongly that they were not the whiskers of a rabbit. Whom the whiskers had belonged to initially were an unsavory animal was a question that Edward could not bear to consider for too long. And so he did not. He preferred, as a rule, not to think unpleasant thoughts. Edward's mistress was a 10-year-old dark-haired girl named Abilene Tulane, who thought almost as highly of Edward as Edward thought of himself. Each morning, after she dressed herself for school, Abilene dressed Edward. The china rabbit was in possession of an extraordinary wardrobe, composed of handmade silk suits, custom shoes, fashioned from the finest leather, and designed specifically for his rabbit feet. "Now, Edward," she said to him after she was done winding the watch, "when the big hand is on the 12 and the little hand is on the 3, I will come to you." She placed Edward on a chair in the dining room and positioned the chair so that Edward was looking out the window and could see the path that led up to the Tulane front door. Abilene balanced the watch on his left leg. She kissed the tips of his ears, and she left Edward and spent the day staring out at Egypt Street. Of all the seasons of the year, the rabbit most preferred the wintertime, for the sun set early and the dining room windows became dark and Edward could see his own reflection in the glass. In the evening, Edward sat at the dining room table with the other members of the Tulane family. Abilene, her mother and father, and Abilene's grandmother, who was also called Pellegrina. True, Edward's ears barely cleared the tabletop, and true, almost he spent the duration of the meal staring straight ahead at nothing but the bright and blinding light of the tablecloth. But he was there, a rabbit at the table. Abilene's parents found it charming that Abilene considered Edward was real, and that she sometimes requested that a phrase or a story be repeated because Edward had not heard it. Only Abilene's grandmother spoke to him as Abilene did, and as one equal to another. Pellegrina was very old. She had a large, sharp nose and bright black eyes that shone like dark stars. It was Pellegrina who was responsible for Edward's existence. It was she who had commissioned his making. She had ordered his silk suits and his pocket watch, his jaunty hat, and his bendable ears, his fine leather shoes, his jointed arms, his legs, and from all the master craftsmen in their native France, it was Pellegrina who had given him as a gift to Abilene on her 7th birthday. It was Pellegrina who came each night to tuck Abilene into her bed and Edward into his. Will you tell us a story, Pellegrina? Abilene asked her grandmother each night. Not today, lady, said Pellegrina. When? Said Abilene. What night? Soon, said Pellegrina. Soon there will be a story. And she turned off the light, and Edward and Abilena lay in the dark of her bedroom. I love you, Edward, Abilene said each and every night after Pellegrina left. She said those words, and then she waited, almost as expecting Edward would say something in return. Edward said nothing. He said nothing because, of course, he could not speak. He lay in a small bed next to Abilene's large one. He stared up at the ceiling and listened to the sound of her breathing, entering and leaving her body. Edward's eyes were painted on, and he could not close them. He was always awake. Sometimes, if Abilene put him onto the bed on the side instead of on his back, he could see through the cracks of the curtains and out into the dark night. On clear nights, the stars shone, and their pinprick light comforted Edward in a way that he could not quite understand. Often he stared at the stars all night until the dark finally gave way to dawn. And that is chapter 1, guys. So, you should do me a favor. Now it's our figuring out writing some things each and every chapter. So at the end of each chapter, I want you guys to write some stuff down. You can write it down in a journal, or if you'd like, you can always type it. You can take a picture of it. You can send it to me through Dojo, or even through Seesaw, because there is messages available on that. Okay? If you want, you can just record yourself saying what the answer is and send it to me through Dojo or through email or any other means that is easier to you guys. Okay? So my question so far is, all right, who are the characters of the story? All right? So your complete answer will be the characters are, or the characters of this story are, okay? And I also want to know, so you already guys made your predictions, okay? I want you guys to say, I think my prediction is right because, or I don't think my prediction is going to be right because. Because based on now you've heard the chapter, do you think the story is going to be about this or that? All right, where do you think it's going? All right, so again, I just want to know who the characters are and was your prediction right and where do you think the story is leading to as we go to chapter 2? If that makes sense, guys, thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys next time for the next chapter.